Hey everyone. Let me check something here for a second. Hold on. Alright. Yeah, I just thought I'd come on here and kind of talk about something that's in the news recently for WWE. Now, first of all, the one thing I do want to talk about is I'm sure a lot of people are not happy with the fact that what we pretty much knew was going to happen at Evolution is going to happen, and that is Ronda Rousey versus Nikki Bella for the Raw Women's Championship, main eventing and closing out the show. Or will it? Just because they say it's the main event and it's going to close out doesn't mean it necessarily will. It could be the second to last match and Charlotte and Becky could close out, but that's an entirely different story in itself. We'll just have to wait and see what they decide to do as we build towards Evolution. But the other news coming out of WWE is the fact that, well, the Crown Jewel event that they have prepared for November 2nd, basically the event that's supposed to take place the Friday following Evolution in Saudi Arabia, might be in danger of not happening. Here's the situation. If you want more information, you can check out Pro Wrestling Unlimited. But by now you've probably heard that a journalist who is a U.S. citizen was born, raised, and lived in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Turkey area. But basically this journalist who has ties to Saudi Arabia and Turkey and all that, and has been very outspoken about a lot of subjects, a lot of topics, while reporting for the Washington Post, as well as reporting for outlets, I believe in the Saudi Arabia district, or country, region, if you will, the Saudi Arabia-Turkey region. Has been very outspoken about the regime of Saudi Arabia. They've been very outspoken. This person's been very outspoken and all that, and especially with the Washington Post, and I'm sure a couple of times with the outlets that he contributed to in the Middle East. Well, apparently, this journalist, and his first name I think is Jamal or something like that. I can't really pronounce it. But basically, this journalist went back to Turkey, went back to Saudi Arabia, Turkey region, to the Turkey region of Saudi, to basically Saudi Arabia, and basically went back there, mostly to Turkey, if you will, to finalize his divorce from his ex-wife so he can marry his new fiancée here in the U.S. Well, apparently, when he was there, he disappeared. And evidence and his work, and basically the report was he was murdered, tortured and murdered at the, I can't really pronounce the name right now, but it sounds like a very important place in Saudi Arabia. But basically, this reporter was tortured and murdered in this area. And again, you want more information, check out Pro Wrestling Insider and stuff to find this out. But yeah, apparently I don't know what happened, why he was possibly tortured and murdered, because reports are coming out that it's most likely about what happened, because he hasn't come back, and now you have the Turkey government saying, yeah, we have an image about what happened, we have some video and photographic evidence that this happened. It really puts a company like WWE in a bind, because there was a conference. I can't think of what it was. Hold on, let me check this momentarily.
WWE is facing pressure from several senators. He was tortured and murdered. This situation has led many media giants like the New York Times, Viacom, CNN, CNBC, Bloomberg, and others to withdraw from the Saudi Further Investment Initiative conference after they were said to serve as sponsor.
Okay, According to what I just read there, I just listened to, and you probably heard it too, is this Saudi Investment Initiative Conference or something like that. And you have a lot of outlets that, if you heard it, from New York Times, CNN, CNN Plus, Bloomberg, Viacom, probably a bunch of others that have pulled out of the situation, pulled out of being sponsors for this conference, this initiative conference, because of what's happened. Now, it is reported that Donald Trump, our president, is saying that they are investigating the situation. Now, the reason WWE is kind of being brought into this as well, like I said, as we know, Crown Jewel is happening on November 2nd. Now, you might say, well, now you might think to yourself, well, Brian, I've heard what Pro Wrestling Unlimited had to say. I've heard what others have had to say. And they've all said that WWE is a is a publicly traded company that really doesn't have any ties to the government, right? You might be true in that sense. That might be true if it wasn't for one integral piece, one interesting piece of the puzzle. And that is Linda McMahon. Linda McMahon, who many of you may not know this, was once the CEO of WWE and even played an on-screen role sometimes as a foil to her husband in storylines. Linda McMahon is an administrator in Donald Trump's cabinet as the administrator of the Small Business Initiative or something like that. So, yeah, she's kind of putting it. So with her being part of Donald Trump's cabinet, this kind of puts WWE in a gray area. It puts them in a gray area to where, they don't have to heed to the warnings of the government and the suggestions of the government to say, or the Senate overall to say, hey, pull out of this event or locate this event someplace else. This is not a good idea. They don't have to do that. But then again, if evidence is shown, if Trump and the Senate see visual evidence that this murder, this torturing, and this murder of this journalist did indeed happen, if it did indeed happen, then they could legally, in a sense, overstep anything. Well, not overstep, but basically they could step in. The government, Donald Trump, the Senate, the House of Representatives, all of them could step in if they see visual evidence that this happened. They could step in and they could say, Vince, sorry, you're not going to do this event. We don't care if you have a contract for 10 years or whatever. You ain't doing this. This ain't happening. No way, no how. They could do that. They could literally knock on Vince McMahon's Stanford House door and say, Vince, here's a whatever kind of legal action it would take. But they could literally hand Vince something that's basically, that by government standards would be something he would have to follow. Like, they could go to his door, hand him a notice saying, this is signed by the president, this is signed by a majority of the Senate and all that, prohibiting you from going to Saudi Arabia for this event. You either cancel it or you locate it either here in the States or to another country that's safer. So, yeah, WWE's kind of in a bind. Now, their response is, hey, we're monitoring the situation. And if they're monitoring the situation, that's great. That's fine. That's great for them. But what are you going to do as you get closer to the event? Well, a lot of people are already thinking that, well, Vince is not one to really, go with what the government says. Even if his wife is a part of it, in a sense. He's not one to be swayed by the government to go one way or the other. So, what happens here? Well, this is what I think is going to happen. According to what I just heard on PW Unlimited, basically they're going to sound. It sounds like WWE is going to take a lot of precautions. They're going to make sure they have extra security, even if they have to bring in military security or whatever, to ensure that this show goes off without a hitch, and that everybody is safe. You know, I wouldn't be surprised, and this is just my opinion, that if they come up with a contingency plan that, okay, after the show is done, get every guy onto the bus, get them to the nearest airport, or as quickly as you can, and get them out of here. I wouldn't be surprised if they go that far. I wouldn't be surprised if they say, hey, if Vince or Triple H or somebody comes out and say, hey, don't worry about packing up your, don't worry about showering or dressing or anything like that. Just get your bags, get out the door, and get on the bus, and we're gonna head towards the airport, and we're gonna fly out of here as quickly as can. Don't be surprised if they come up with that kind of an idea for after the show. In other words, don't be surprised if you see like officials, if you see like security officers or officials accompanying and escorting superstars to and out of the ring and back to the back after the match is done to ensure their safety, but also to make sure, hey, get your stuff together, you got to get out of here as quickly as you can so we can get you on a flight back to the U.S. I would not be surprised if that's the plan they come up with to ensure their safety. But yeah, when you have one senator come out and basically say that, hey, you guys need to rethink this whole situation, it's like, after what's been reported, then yeah, they do need to rethink it. But we know Vince McMahon. But even though we're fans and WWE may not think we know what we're talking about, we see Vince McMahon as the kind of guy that's still going to go through with it. But he'll be the kind of guy that'll still go through with it, but take extra precautions. And I'm guaranteeing you, possibly one of those precautions is, hey, let's get you out of this place safe and sound. Let's get the event, on and over with. And then as soon as it's all said and done, get you guys out of here. Don't worry about changing clothes. Just pack up, just get your bags, eggs, get to the bus. We're going to drive you all the way to the airport and fly you back to the United States as quickly as possible. I'm not going to be surprised if that occurs. I won't be. And neither should you. But yeah, WWE right now is in quite a bind. What do they do? I mean, the question is, everybody's saying, okay, asking is, what is WWE going to do? And again, like I said, a majority of fans are pretty much going to say WWE is still going to go through with it. And some are still going to go through with it because they never backed down before from, the government, or they don't heed to what the government says or be swayed by them. But a lot of people are also saying that they'll still go through with it, but they'll take the precautions they took with Greatest Royal Rumble. Because, let's be honest, Saudi Arabia, no offense at times, because there probably are some good parts, good regions, peaceful regions of Saudi Arabia, but overall, it's like, yeah, this, despite a few good places here and there, this may not be the best of areas to hold major events. I mean, have you not noticed why the World Cup, FIFA World Cup, the Olympic Committee, why they haven't given Saudi Arabia a crack at hosting any of these shows, any of the major events? The exact same reason why they're worried about WWE doing theirs. But yeah, WWE right now, they're in quite a bind. If it comes out in the next few weeks that, we canceled Crown Jewel, then a lot of people are going to... And here's what I'm talking about WWE being in a bind. Let's say... and I'm just checking my time there, but let's say they have to cancel the event. WWE is in quite a bind because right now they have 3 major matches signed that are being advertised, and one tournament event being advertised. What are they going to do? Well, one, they could move the Triple Threat Universal Championship, the tag team match between DX and the Brothers of Destruction, as well as the WWE Championship match. They can move all those a month later to Survivor Series. But then what do you do about the World Cup tournament? Do you do the same thing? And thus you turn Survivor Series into Mind Games 1998? Or something like that? Survivor Series 1998? Is that what you do? You turn it into that? Or do you still go through, or do you go to another location, another country? Do you do that? Do you go to Mexico? Do you go to England? Do you go to Japan? Do you go to Canada? Where do you go? Where do you relocate? Or, like I said, and many people pointed this out, do you go through with it still, but make sure you have plenty of security and you have a contingency plan in place to make sure your superstars get in and out of the building safe? We honestly don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. But the bind I'm talking about is if they have to cancel Crown Jewel and thus they cancel the World Cup with it, it'll be like, then why are you putting these World Cup matches together in the first place? Why'd you do that in the first place? Doesn't make sense. So, if I'm WWE, so we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, will Crown Jewel happen or will it? We'll have to wait and see. But let me know what you guys think down below. Comment if you like, and I'll talk to y'all later.